welcome you to this Viking webinar. Today, we be covering the defrost system on the 7 Series refrigerators. And before we begin, I just got a couple things to tell you. First of all, this webinar is going to be recorded today. Also, if you would please mute your microphone and on your phone. And if you have any questions, please address them through the chat button on your screen. And Leanne will be letting me know who has some questions. So to begin, like I said, we're doing the 700 series today. On Wednesday, we covered the 5 series. And what I'm going to go through today is kind of giving you an overview of what exactly happens on a 7 Series refrigerator if we do not have a defrost condition, and how you need to go about to diagnose it. So let me just go ahead and share my screen for a second and go ahead here. All righty. Okay, so what we're going to start with today is just kind of an overview of what happens on the 700 series. You walk into a customer's home, complain there's no defrost. You open up the freezer and you find the thing packed with frost. What are the steps that you need to take? So I'm going to step you through what we need you to do and the best way to diagnose it. Now, what I'm about to tell you, it will not work if, for example, the customer called, said she had no defrost, he had no defrost, and they defrosted overnight, and you show up the next day and the unit was just switched on like 10 minutes before you got there. None of the readings are going to correlate with what you need for the defrost. So we want to make sure that you get the unit in its actual freezing conditions with the evaporator frosted over. On your screen, oh, by the way, my name is Michael Maguire. I forgot to introduce myself. And Leanne Galt is assisting me in our Greenwood office. So in front of you on your screen, what you have is you have the 3 components that have to meet a certain criteria in order for this unit to go into defrost. You have your freezer evaporator thermistor, which must be below 55 degrees on the evaporator. If it is not, then the unit will not go into defrost. The freezer cabinet thermistor, with sensing your air temperature, has to be below 45 degrees. So, and I'm going to show you on the unit. I actually have a unit here we're going to go through, and I'll show you how to check that through the board. And then a defrost terminator. It's a defrost terminator that you all have been used to for years. It's a snap-on defrost thermostat. It closes at 45 degrees, and it opens at 75. So if you walk to a customer's home and the thing's been off and you switch it on, that unit has to cool down to at least 45 degrees on that defrost terminator before any defrost is going to activate. Once it hits 45 degrees, then it can warm up right below 75 and still stay closed. A note, if the evaporator thermistor is open or shorted and the board senses that, so it's not getting an actual reading of what the temperature is on the evaporator, what it's going to do is the defrost system is going to switch over to a conventional defrost. So what the board will do is every 8 hours of runtime, it's going to go ahead and turn the defrost heater on, regardless of what the evaporator thermistor is reading. Because obviously, if it's shorted or open, we won't get a proper defrost based on accumulative defrost. The system will also revert to conventional defrost if the compartment thermistor verifies that the unit is operating properly on the air thermostat, but fails to change value on the evaporator. So if the temperature is varying in the freezer section by the air sensing thermistor and the evaporator is just sitting there, the board's going to assume we have a faulty or a stuck evaporator thermistor. So it too will run for 16 minutes every 8 hours. Now on the 7 Series, we do have a dual compressor. So we have 2 zones. We have a fresh food compartment, which is what I used to call for years a wet evaporator. It also has a heater in it. It's a foil heater. and it operates very similar, except the fresh food evaporator thermistor is going to be below 46 in order to function. The in the parameter modes, which I'm going to go through with you, you can check what the readings are. It's a read only. We can check to see what the evaporator thermistors are reading in the parameter mode, and I'm going to go through that. For example, last night when I plugged this unit in, I ran an automatic test, and it showed me I had errors on both defrost heater circuits and both defrost thermostats. So that's because it wasn't cold enough. So, and also the defrost time on the fresh food evaporator is a maximum of 45 minutes. So, okay. So, what I want to do now is to go to the actual get inside the unit here. And let me switch over to my other camera. And we'll just go. Okay, let's see. Just get it a little closer here. And go ahead and open up the door. Okay, so what we have here is the display on the 700 series. My camera can't get low enough to get an actual real clear shot, but you should be able to see the display there. Let me move this a little bit. There we go. All right. Just a minute. Okay, so here's our control panel. What we want you to do is when you walk in the house, the very first thing we want you to do is to run an automatic test. Before you take a tool out of your toolbox, if we got a defrost problem, we want you to run the automatic test. The automatic test is going to run and check all the components in this unit, okay? And it will take about 30 seconds to 45 seconds. It will check all our fans, the heaters, lights, and everything. And I'm going to show you how to do that. In a comparison to the 5 series, if you've worked on the 5 series, you know you have to enter service mode, and then there's a lot of program A, program B, program C. None of that exists on this unit. This unit is very simplistic to get into. There's really only 2 modes. There's your service mode, and there's your automatic test function. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how the automatic test works. And this is, again, this is the very first thing that you want to do when you walk in on this unit. So let me go ahead and get a little closer. Okay. All right. So what you've got here is you got your mute button here to mute, like if you got the door open alarm. You got your max refrig, max freeze, ice settings. You've got your refrigerator temperature, so you can go ahead and set that to go ahead and set if you want whatever temperature you want. And you got your freezer one right here, which you can go ahead and set your freezer. On the left, you got max refrig, Sabbath mode, vacation mode, and Fahrenheit Celsius. Well, the 3 keypads we're going to use to get in the automatic test is your mute button, your Sabbath button, and your Fahrenheit Celsius button. And what we're going to do is hold all 3 of those for 3 seconds, and it will go into the automatic test. So when you do that, you want to hit the Fahrenheit Celsius button last, because if you hit it first, the display goes ahead and changes to Celsius and kind of throws off the readings. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to hit mute, Sabbath, and Fahrenheit Celsius for 3 seconds. Everything shuts off. The display lights up. It goes between all white to all blue. And every time you see blue, it's actually checking a component. Now, it doesn't tell you what component it's checking, like the 5 series, which will go through each number. But this is just going through all the fans, the inverters, everything right now. So this is the again, first thing you want to do when you walk in the home is just go ahead and run this test. See if you get any fail codes. So, all right, as you can see, the test only took about 35, 40 seconds, and it came back with no error codes. Now, if there is an error code displayed, at this point, it's going to flash ER on that left display. Only this display is going to flash. It'll flash ER and then a code number. a fault number. And if there's more than one fault, it will show you the first fault, then it'll flash the second fault, then the third fault, and then back to the first if we have 3 errors. And it'll keep doing that till you clear it. So right now we have no errors. So this tells me that the defrost circuit is working. And I'm going to show you how to go in there and check the components. At this point, there's really nothing that you can do except to do a download. I'm going to show you how to do a download. On the download, turn this way a little bit. This is with the control panel off. What you want to do is you want to have a thumb drive with you, USB. This is just a plain 4 gig. It doesn't even need to be that big, but this is pretty much standard for the inexpensive ones. And what you do is we will plug in the USB, and you don't have to do anything else. Like on the 5 series, if you've ever done it, you got to plug in the USB stick. You got to go to the display. You got to hit the up button till you see DOL. Then you got to hit the activate control pad, and it flashes for about 3 or 4 minutes till you see the word END. This one is as simple as it can get. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to go up to the unit. This is after you run the automatic test. You're going to put the thumb drive into the slot, and that's it. Okay. In about 35, 40 seconds, we're going to hear 3 beeps. This is going to download 45 days worth of data. Once you get that data, then you would let the customer know that you would be sending that data to Viking for analysis. It goes to service files at vikingrange.com. You'll also copy your RSM. And just when you send the file, all you're going to do is just say, this is Bob. I just heard the 3 tones, so I'm going to pull the stick out. You would go ahead and send the file, and in the file, you want to put, this is Bob from Bob's Appliance. Here's the data files from Mrs. Smith, 102 Main Street, Beaufort, Georgia, model number, serial number. They will analyze it, and they'll get back to you, and they can tell you why it's not defrosting, even though you went through all the components. So I would definitely get used to doing this, because on the 5 series and 7 series, this does a lot of the work for you if it's not an obvious problem that you see. Okay. So let's say we did have an error code. All right. So we're going to go back to our display. Let's see. Okay. So we go to our display. I just showed you that when you go into service test mode, you go ahead, you press these 3 buttons, right? So to go into service mode, functional test mode is these 3 buttons, like I just did. Service mode is just 2 buttons, the mute and the Fahrenheit alarm, okay? So we'll go ahead and we're going to push those 2 buttons, hold them in, and that says SM up on the display, okay? These are the only 2 programs that you will ever have to run. This particular one, the service mode, this will check. We have 98 parameters built into this machine. So there are 98 parameters. A majority of them are areas where you can actually go in there and make changes, which we don't advise it unless somebody instructs you to do. We have seen occasions that somebody will get inside this and stop pushing buttons, and we'll turn this bottom mount into a side-by-side or into a freezer or refrigerator. If you ever come across one of these that's been worked on by somebody, what you want to do is if you get to number 7, and this is all documented, by the way. Docimoto has all this information. We have information in bulletins. So all this information is out there for you to download. You go to number 7. 7, you hit the button that says OF for off. You hit the up button, turn it on, hit this button. You've just reprogrammed all 98 factory settings. So if you ever suspect somebody got in there and started messing around with settings, and even if it's not just a defrost issue, if it's something else, you can go in there and reset to the factory defaults. Okay. So the parameters that we are interested in is, first of all, the freezer evaporator thermistor. What is the freezer evaporator thermistor reading? So if you have an issue with the defrost, you would get to the first one, which is the freezer cabinet thermistor. Your actual air temperature is Delta 50. So we're going to go up to D50. Okay, D50 is going to be our air sensor. Right now, the freezer temperature on this unit is 6 degrees. So that is definitely well below the required 45 degrees. So we know that right now the freezer thermistor, air thermistor is reading relatively what our temperature is. If it said 50 or 60 or 70, obviously we got a bad thermistor inside there. Okay. Now the next one is going to be the evaporator thermistor. Okay. That's going to be number 51. So 50 and 51 check both thermistors, and you can see that our evaporator is at 1 degree. Now we had a question at the 1 o'clock meeting as what is the normal evaporator temperature? Normal running evaporator temperatures is like pretty much standard, -10, -15. The reason that ours is a little high is because obviously we've had this thing apart all day and people turning it on and off. So, but at least at this point, you know that if it's not defrosting, it's not the evaporator thermistor that's causing it. It's not the air sensing thermometer thermistor that's causing it. The next thing we need to check is, do we have a good defrost terminator? And do we have a good heater? Okay. So in order to check that, what we want to do is to go out of this mode. So we're going to get out of the service mode. So we're going to reverse what we did. Alarm off and Fahrenheit Celsius. Okay, so now we're out of the service mode. Now I want to put it in forced defrost. Okay, so forced defrost is, again, we use this mute key for almost everything. The up button is going to put you in the forced defrost. Down button is going to put you in a force run. So I'm going to press and hold these two. All right, I just heard the fan shut off. The heater should have come on. And what you can see here, I'll show you this right now, but you'll see on my meter, I'm showing 116 volts. And I'm going to get to that in a little bit of where to look for that. But right now, back to the display, I know that I heard that the heater came on. So now I can go into the software and see, is the heater on? Because remember, if you got the control panel up there and no meter, you still want to know if the defrost is coming on. So I'm in forced defrost. I'm going to go back to service mode. These two buttons. Now I'm going to go up to parameter 60, 60, okay? What's nice is you can hold it and it'll keep cycling through. Okay, parameter 60 says CL. What that's telling me is that the board has initiated a defrost. It sent power through the defrost thermostat. The defrost thermostat was closed. So on the opposite side of the defrost thermostat, our power branches off. It goes to the heater and it goes back to the board. The board sees that 110 coming back. So it closed the circuit for defrost. If it said OPN, OP for open, then that means for some reason the defrost did not initiate, okay? And it's an indication that the defrost thermostat is our issue. So these steps you want to take, again, I'll rehash, do automatic test, do a download. I would do a download either way, because if something happens down the road, at least you'll have the data. Do the download, go into the service mode, check 50 and 51, make sure they're below where they need to be. Get out of service mode, force defrost, go back and check to see if it closed. If we're at this point right now, there is nothing wrong with this defrost that I can see at all. All the components are working. The board is switching it on and off. What will tell us what the problem is would be the download. Now, obviously, the download can come back and say the doors are left open all the time and we're getting full of frost. We're not melting off enough. It's building up. But at least we'll be able to have an indication of what's wrong. We don't want you to start replacing parts unless it's necessary to do so. So that's where we're at this point. We can see that we're closed. So now the next thing, if it was open, and if we have to go a little further, before you go and pull the unit apart, let me go ahead and get out of service mode again. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go up top. And okay, so I've got a camera that should be, there we go. Okay, so obviously I've got this unit out of the wall. I got the top panel off, very easy to get to. Obviously, it's not going to be as easy for you when you're in the home. But what I wanted to show you before I go into this, I want to show you something else that I created. By the way, if there's anything you see today that I'm showing you, if you want it, we've had several servicers after the class who have asked for me to send it to them, and I've gone ahead and done that. So let me just get my glasses on so I can see what I'm looking at. There we go. First of all, before I go right to that, this is a diagram that I created basically for training for most part, but this is basically just the defrost circuit on the 7 series. I've left everything else out, but it just shows you on the board where your wiring goes to each terminal and each component. And you can see that over here, P23 is the black orange wire, which goes to the single side of the defrost bimetal. P31, which is a brown and orange, feeds both the defrost bimetal and the heater. But this power will not be present unless we have a return on this wire. So you can see the other side of the heater goes to neutral, and we just have the evaporator thermistor and the freezer thermistor. So that's basically the circuit for the components for your defrost. What I've also done, if we didn't have a unit today, I was trying to be prepared for it. So let's see if this opens. Come on. It's Friday afternoon, so it doesn't want to operate. Come on. Oh, I don't know why it's not opening. Yeah, 1 second. Well, it worked twice today, Leanne. I don't know what's going on now.
Did.
Well, let's try. No. All right. So what I basically I was going to open up was basically it's a PowerPoint that shows how to get to the test, do all the testing. It does work, believe me. But what I show in it is photographs of the board up top. Let me go back to the camera and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay. And this is live, so I'll make sure I don't joke myself. So this is looking at the board here. And right around here, this is in the front, okay? And I'll show you another shot in a minute. But you can access in the front here, it's hard to see because of the camera view, but there's a screw here, 1/4-inch screw. This whole tray that this board is sitting on can pull forward, okay? So you can pull it forward. Obviously, you want to be careful with the power off so you don't short anything out. And you can get to these terminals right here. Right over here is the main neutral over here. Okay, that's where our neutral, that's where my meter lead is. And over here is P3, P2, and is P21, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's P23 that I've got my voltmeter attached to. And that's where the power is going to the single side of the defrost terminator. So right there, what I can do at this point is I showed you how I had voltage there. But let's just say we don't have the voltage there. Now we want to know, do we have a good heater? Do we have a bad defrost terminator? So we'll go back over here. And funny, you have these things set up and then they don't work for you. All right, there we go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and turn my meter on. And of course, I was reading voltage. and you can still see that we're reading 118 volts, but let's just say we weren't reading that. I'm going to go ahead and switch this off. Okay. And I'm on the same terminals. I'm on the neutral. I'm on the P23, which is the single wire that goes over to the defrost terminator. With the defrost terminator closed, I should have a path through the heater to neutral. So if I switch my meter to ohms, I should be reading about 29 to 30 ohms, which you see I have right there. Okay. Because I'm wired to the defrost thermostat, I'm going through the defrost thermostat, through the heater to neutral. Everything's good. My defrost terminator is closed, my heater's closed. Now, if this was 0 and I wasn't getting anything, now I don't know. Okay, is it the defrost thermostat that's open? Is it the heater that's open? Well, I'm going to jump past the defrost thermostat. You can see this terminal right here, okay? This is, it's 4 wires. This is P31, and if you can tell, there's a brown and purple, there's a brown and white, there's a solid brown, and at the end, there's a brown with an orange tracer. That goes directly to the heater. So if I'm getting between here and there, and I'm not getting my reading through my heater, I can come here and go direct to the heater. So if I get 30 ohms here, let's see. There we go. Okay, so I moved the wrong wire. So what I want to do is keep the neutral here. This P32 is through both the defrost terminator over through the heater, and this is directly to the heater. Okay. So obviously, if this was open right now, okay, then I know I've got a bad heater. If it's closed here and open P32, I got a bad defrost terminator. So that's how you can determine just those 2 wires to neutral if your heater is good or your defrost thermostat is good. Any questions at this point, Leanne?
Nope, I don't see anything in the chat.
That's good. Okay, so go ahead, switch us back on. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the, get my camera for a minute. And I'm going to go into the fresh food compartment and kind of give you an overview of the components in here. Let's go ahead and get this going. Okay, let's see. Let's go ahead, switch. All right, we don't want that much. Okay, let's see. Oops, sorry about that. Here I am telling everybody to shut their phones off. Mine was left on. Okay, so we'll take the back cover off. And I'm reaching in the back, unplugging the tube. Obviously, I've got this all staged in the back. This is the fresh food compartment. And we can see, can't see anything right now. Okay. All right, there is our evaporator, defrost terminator. You can see the defrost terminator for the fresh food cabinet is right over here. And here's your evaporator thermistor, which is right there, right next to where the defrost thermostat is. And I do want to mention, we have gone away or are going away on all of our products with this defrost thermostat that you guys have been used to for years, that just snaps around, closes at 45, opens at 75. We've gone to a thermal link. Now on the All Freezer 5 series, Rev 20, current production with the 8-pin ice maker. We're now using the thermal link. The thermal link basically is a fuse on both sides of the heater, the hot side, the neutral side. It's closed up to 183 degrees. So a unit warm out of the box, you could ohm out this fuse and it should be closed. If it opens up, it means that we either had high temperatures in there, runaway heater, or high amperage draw. Now, currently, George Bolts, who you probably all know is a senior tech writer for Viking, is gathering all the information on this thermal link so we can put more information on how to test that a little more thoroughly. But right now we're using the thermal link on the all freezer, and we're using it on the 18 and 24-inch 7 series columns. Right now, this is the current generation bottom mount. So this one has the defrost terminator. On the refresh, it will be going to the defrost thermistor, and this one will also be going to the 8-pin ice maker. So while I'm going to go ahead and take the freezer drawers out. And let me go ahead and get inside the freezer. Yeah, a little bit down there. Okay, there we go. Nope, not too far. Not too far. Okay, so there's our freezer evaporator. There's the defrost terminator at the top, the orange and the brown wire. And you can see the little white wire there that's obviously shouldn't be just hanging down like that. Should be snapped in there. Okay, that's your evaporator thermistor. And then hanging down here, which normally it isn't, is our cavity thermistor. So that's where everything is inside the freezer compartment. But, you know, to get to it, you got to take all these parts apart. That's why I'm trying to show you an easier way to check all this before you go ahead and rip into this unit. Very simple design, obviously, what you've been used to for decades. But with the electronics, it helps a lot more to diagnose, so you're not having to do it the old-fashioned way. So, okay. Any questions on that? On this? Anything, Leanne?
No, I think you've done such a good job explaining it. Nobody has any questions.
Oh, I don't know about that. I do my best, but anyways, that's the defrost. Again, to recap, go in the house, run the automatic tests, do a download. I would do it regardless. Okay. If you don't find anything, obviously you're sending off the files. If you see error codes, go into the service mode, check 50, 51. If they're both reading good, get out of service mode, force defrost, go back into service mode to parameter 60, see if it says open or closed. If it says closed, let me just rehash on that. If it says closed, that means the board sent power out to the defrost thermostat. And because the defrost thermostat is closed, it sees the return and says, okay, our defrost thermostat is closed. We're gonna close the circuit. If you see open, it's usually an indication of a bad defrost thermostat, not so much the heater. So that's it, basically, everybody. Again, if you have no questions, again, I appreciate your time today. It's Friday night. It's almost 4:30 here in Atlanta. So you all have a great weekend. Thanks for attending. We'll let you know when we have more coming. And have a good upcoming 4th of July week.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you very much, everybody.